I would have just gone to therapy instead of joining a cult. On this week's episode of Horror Hole, I'm your host Wyatt, and who is here with me today as always?
I'm Cody Briscoe, and you know, Wyatt, I imagine you really enjoyed this movie because, like Ruben, you're also the product of inbreeding.
And we're here to talk about Midsommar. The first time we're doing an Ari Aster film, not his most famous one, that's probably Hereditary, but I wanted to be a little bit different and say, hey, let's go to Midsommar. I guess first impressions, holy shit.
Mm-hmm. I knew you'd love it.
Yeah, like, what an incredible movie.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about it, Cody?
Oh my gosh. This is a masterpiece of a movie. I have a storied history with this movie because
Cool.
I saw it in the theaters. My friend took me to see it without telling me really what movie it was. And just coincidentally, I saw it like right as I was going through like a really, really bad breakup. So I was like, oh, it was like one of those times where like a movie is like really speaking to me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love this movie. Has a lot to talk about, and I knew you would be into it because me and you both, for years now, we've known that we both have like a really shared interest in cults and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I'm very, and this kind of stuff just always fascinates me. You know, it kind of bleeds into like the true crime stuff, but really I am just more interested in like cults and in general how they operate, how they like manipulate or break people down and then get them to join the cult in like yes, exactly, to the point where it's like you almost feel like you're being indoctrinated by the movie at certain points, because there's so many moments throughout the movie that I was like, you know, this is kind of nice, just walking around without your shoes on. Just like there's cows over there and whatever.
There's a free mushroom tea. I would be I would be getting back in line in different disguises, like it's free samples at the grocery store.
Yeah, that is funny, like how much they're tripping sack throughout the entire movie. Like that's it's very good. It's like it makes the final act like so delirious. We'll get into that when we discuss the movie further. But like, what is your relationship with like Ari Aster's other movies? I mean, we can probably talk about Hereditary more in detail when we actually get to it.
Yeah.
But I have never seen Hereditary or Beau is Afraid or this until now. So I want to know about you, like as a horror fan.
So I've never seen Beau. I've seen like the first 10 minutes of Beau is Afraid, but then something came up and I couldn't finish it. But Hereditary is another movie that I just really love. It's like Ari Aster's movies, I would say, are like the most emblematic of the distribution company A24, because they all go for like a certain type of movie, and I think Hereditary and Midsommar are the most successful of their like typical kind of release. I'd say that and like the X trilogy with Mia Goth are like they're golden cows. But I love Ari Aster's work. He is such a fascinating director because like not just his shot composition, but he's so good at getting performances out of his actors, which we'll get into. He has what's it called? I can't remember the name of it, but there's this really fucked up little short film he made about like this family and like an abuse.
The strange thing about the Johnsons.
Yeah.
I have at least seen that, so or at least know of that. So
so he's a great director. I know Beau is Afraid is like still horror adjacent, but nowhere near as much as the first two movies of his. So I'm pretty sure his fourth one might be going back to horror. I think it's like a horror western or something like that, which I'm really curious about.
Yeah, especially because like I don't know, that seems to fit with this movie to an extent. Like this is more like Eastern European pastoral setting, but like the like Western, you know, going out and like striking it out on your own or whatever, like that kind of fits in that same like taste category or a similar one to this. So yeah, I'd be interested to see that.
Have you ever seen an A24 movie like that you know of before?
I think I've seen a few. I probably have seen a few.
Mhm.
Maybe some non-horror
Oh yeah,
movies.
like Everything Everywhere All at Once is a A24.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then I don't know if the I might be wrong about this, but let's see.
Did you
Is
say
this
is
an A20? Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Marcel the Shell with Shoes on. I've seen that movie.
Mhm.
That's an A24 movie. So
Yeah,
that's a very good movie, by the way. So just
we
saying,
we have it on Plex. I should watch it at some point.
yeah, it's like it's very weird that they took this weird like internet thing from like 10 years, like a long time ago, and then made it into like a full on like mockumentary style movie. It's very, very interesting, entertaining thing. But yeah, I just see them as like they're not quite like art house, but they're like a little bit. It's that term that I kind of hate, the elevated horror movie. You know that people they
I hate
put
I,
on Hereditary
I hate
and
it too, but it is like the term exists for a reason. I'll say,
exactly
yeah.
like it's just like walking simulator in terms of like video games,
Hmm.
where it's like that's reductive to call like these adventure games, you know, whatever, that are more story based and less gameplay focused, just walking simulators. But also like, yeah, that kind of is what they
I mean,
are.
I
Like
mean, I did
even
play Firewatch, so
yeah, Firewatch is one of those. Gone Home, Stanley Parable, stuff like that. I took a drink real quick, but yeah, I was very excited to check this out because again, we're like really into, maybe not really into cults, but I'm just like I'm always interested to like watch stuff about them.
yeah. There was
I've seen some. Yeah, go ahead.
a period of time years ago where it was very common for me and you to just find like a fucked up cult documentary and watch it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like I
Back in
remember
the rabbit
watching.
days.
Like I remember like learning about stuff like Rajneeshpuram, learning
Mhm.
about stuff like
People's
the
Temple.
like and the what is the fucking guys that killed themselves in the comment? The Heaven's
Heaven's
Gate,
Gate.
that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like and just kind of like learning about it less from a like this is scary criminal perspective and more of a like what went wrong, like what caused this to happen.
It's like a fascinating tragedy instead of like you're fright.
Yeah.
It's you're not like scared of it as in like you would be like learning about like Richard Ramirez or something.
Yeah, and I'll say this as we get into the movie. I was like reading some comments on, I watched like a video that was a review of the movie after I watched the movie by Ryan Hollinger, who is
Okay.
like generally a pretty good
Yeah.
video maker. Yeah, I didn't really agree with his take about it, and we can get into that when we get to the end of the movie. But like reading the comments, there was a lot of people that were like arguing really back and forth about the true meaning of the movie and like what was the intention of like this versus that, or like was Christian in the right or was Danny in the right or whatever, like that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And I feel like that is very like you're kind of missing the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely say like I saw some people that are like, I don't understand why people think that this is a cult. And
What?
it's like, yeah, I understand that it's a traditional community that has existed presumably for hundreds of years in this location, but like what the fuck do you think a cult is? Like what do you think? I feel like we have to have definitions
Hmm.
of things. So like a closed off community of people, that have like these strict religious, or traditional values,
That
uh
perform
and like
ceremonies and isolate
yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah, do all this. I feel like it pretty much hits the nail on the head of what a cult is. But I'll ask you, Cody, do you just want to kind of talk about this generally, or do you want to go through like the
Um,
plot of the
there's
movie?
I do have a written down of like events of the plot. There's this is a like 2.5 hour long movie, so we're not going to cover everything,
Hmm.
of course. But
Oh, that's another thing. It's like very well paced for being so
yeah.
long.
Hmm. So yeah, 2 hours 20, I think. But
Hmm.
yeah, real quick to touch on what you just mentioned. The biggest debate that I remember about this movie is just the debate around Christian in general.
Hmm.
Like does he deserve his fate? Like that kind of thing. And it's
Yeah.
um we'll touch. I guess I could just touch on his character now before we touch on Danny. I
Yeah,
guess.
I think we can
Yeah.
go into it because I think it will color our
Mhm.
reading of the movie, but go
like
ahead.
Christian, he is like a shitty boyfriend, and he's not able to be
Hmm.
present for Danny emotionally, but he's it's not written as like he's an abuser or like he's a
Yeah.
monster. It's like it's definitely not like a comeuppance that
Yeah.
in the end. It's more so like uh they the cult like manipulates the entire sequence of events in this movie for it to happen.
Hmm.
None of the characters in this movie really have any agency over what happens around them,
Hmm.
which could be seen as a critique, but I personally don't really mind it because it lets you more so hone in on the characters' like internal journeys.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, Christian he's just kind of a lame dude, but I the hatred around this character, I understand it probably comes from like a really real place, people who dated guys like that. So
Guys, yeah.
there is a catharsis to what happens to him, but he's not like I'm trying to think of a really shitty boyfriend in horror movies. Like oh my god. What the heck was his name? Mika from Paranormal Activity. By
Yeah.
far a worse boyfriend.
Yeah. I agree with you. Like, I think that it is, like, kind of ridiculous to assume that it's like, oh man, they got what they deserved, you know? And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like, again, go to therapy. Don't light him on
Yeah.
fire in a temple. Like, that's not.
God, one of the and there's so many. Like I think this movie is really good at disturbing you rather than like frightening you
Mm,
because it just
yeah.
like I watched this movie today's what Sunday, right? I watched this movie on
Mm,
Friday
mm,
and it's the Ari Aster's movies are ones that like kind of haunt you and stick with you after you watched them.
yeah.
Uh, but I just kept going back to at the very end when the temple is burning. I had
Mm,
never heard this before. I had never noticed it before. But you can hear Christian like trying to scream and have no noise being able to come out of his mouth.
yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
fucked up.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
was like, that was something I was thinking about the entire time, was just like how horrific that must be to be in, like, that terrifying of a position and in so much pain, but you're paralyzed, so you can't do anything
Mhm.
at all except for just suffer in silence.
Yeah,
It's just like, which is an allegory for, kind of their relationship,
yeah.
where it's like,
He's getting
literally, he wanted to break up with her, but this horrific thing happens to her, and it's like, wow, it would be really shitty
mhm.
if I just broke up with my girlfriend the second that her entire family was murdered.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
like,
it's nobody's fault really. Like the situation up. It's like
yeah,
okay, of
it's
course
just,
he could.
yeah, it's just a nightmare, because like they were on their last ropes, and he was already like, she was worried that she was being too like overbearing, and he is just like, you know whatever, he felt suffocated by her and
Yeah, he
everything, so it's like confirming her. Like, I'm not necessarily, look, I'm not trying to say he was in the right for his attitude and everything. Like, I think that, like, it's very easy to side with Danny in this movie, and I think that's what the movie wants you to do.
mhm.
But it's just like, in the sense that, like, not in like it's a good thing that it happened, but just in the sense of like manipulating you into a like feeling bad
Yeah.
about your like feelings by the end. Um, but
Speaking of that tragedy, really quick, there's that scene where Christian's talking with his friends in the bar, and I
mm,
noticed this line. Uh, they're talking about like other women that Christian could be with, and they very specifically say, I think it's Mark first, because there's like a hot winter, and it's like
mm,
you could be getting that girl pregnant right now, and then Pele
yeah.
says, "Don't forget all the Swedish women you could be getting." This
Yeah,
movie,
Pele is secretly the antagonist
yes,
of,
he is.
maybe not secretly, but like he's like the manipulator from behind the scenes. I think they like keep you focused on Christian because he's the shitty boyfriend, but like this guy coming in and like, I mean, I clocked it, you know,
Yeah,
very early on in the movie, that I was like, oh, he's fucking manipulating her by being so nice and like present, while her boyfriend is like being a complete douche,
trying to do
and
his
ignoring
thesis or
her.
whatever.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. Everything about him just makes, I like,
We didn't even
you
touch about
want to, you, yeah.
the most obvious thing about him. is the fact that he's the Romeo and Juliet boyfriend from that one Transformers movie.
Yes, that's the like. I remember being like, why do I recognize this guy? And then I looked up the actor. I was like, oh my fucking god, it's that dude from Transformers Four. That
He's
explains why it's okay to fuck a minor.
he's so good at being a shitty boyfriend.
Mm. This poor guy. I'm sure Jack Rayner is a good
Yeah.
guy in real life, but
It's just
like yeah, and I felt really bad for at the end of the movie when he's like out of his fucking mind, tripping off his ass,
yeah.
and then
They drug him
is
like 3 times in a row within like the span of like a couple hours.
yeah,
Mhm.
and then like just like that whole ceremony, uh,
The
which I
sex
was
ceremony.
very yeah, which I was like, oh boy, wow. Apparently, some of that had to be cut because it would have given the movie an NC-17 rating,
Uh,
um,
did you
which makes
notice?
sense.
Did you notice that after he kind of the post nut clarity sets in,
Hmm.
he runs out of the temple and his dick is hanging out. Did you
Yeah.
notice that his dick is bloody?
Yes.
So such a gross detail to include.
Hmm.
But
Yeah. That and like when there were like another like gross detail involving blood was like earlier in the movie when they like show like a wall thing of like a woman cutting off her pubes and like dripping like period blood into a thing, and then later we see him eat like one of those cakes and it has a pube in it, and then we see his drink and it's like a red
it's a
tint
little
compared
bit
to
it's
everybody
slightly
else's, which is
discolored.
yeah, and I was like, oh god. That's disgusting.
All the artwork in like yeah, I think we're just gonna jump.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fine.
all the artwork in like the cult compound that's like old style paintings are like
Hmm.
so beautifully done, and the very first shot of the movie it holds on a really long one of like with like 5 vertical panels, and like if you go back and
Hmm.
look at it, it is like the entire story of the movie that's told.
Yeah, which is really cool. Like I love it when a movie like I feel like I haven't seen Hereditary, but I know that it kind of does a similar thing where it like tells you the outline of the tragedy that's like it gives you like the foregone conclusion and then like
Yeah.
forces you to sit there and like experience the tragedy like as it plays out. This is very similar. I was very sad to see Chidi from The Good Place like die. I was hoping he
Oh
wouldn't
yeah,
die
that is a
because I like him.
that death is also very upsetting because like it just feels so real because like you see like kind of
Mm,
just this indentation on the top of his head, and he just like
yeah,
is making
fuck.
he's just making like groaning noises, like it's just like his
Hmm.
brain just trying to fire, and
Yeah, and
it's
he's
so
twitching.
yeah, it's
That and the fucking like the first sacrifice
cliff
of
jump.
like the two old people. I was like, God damn! I didn't even think about like in real life because I've never seen somebody jump off a cliff and die. That it would be like, oh yeah, I guess if you smack against a rock, your face would explode.
Yeah,
I was just like, Jesus, it's so gruesome. And then the other guy, the male of the
he
two,
pencil dives.
falling off. Yeah, and then he breaks his leg, and it's like really fucked up.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, when that started, I was like, okay, it's gonna be some weird sacrifice. And
As soon
then
as you the first
that
shot,
hammer,
that's the first shot is the hammer.
yeah. So I was like, they're going to need to do that to either kill them or put them down out of their misery for some reason. So like when I noticed that it was like, okay, they're gonna jump off the cliff. Yeah. What happens if somebody misses that rock? Okay, that's the mortar
Hmm.
and pestle with hammer. Um,
Yeah.
and that's like a really good scene because it establishes the like tendency that the cult has, Harga, the cult, to like they always mimic the emotion of like whatever
Yes.
person is suffering, or is like is like the
Performed group
center of
empathy.
attention.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're like screaming in agony as this guy is like screaming in agony after missing his jump, and then like later in the movie when they're fucking, or when Christian is fucking that girl, all the women surrounding him are like mimicking the moaning
Mm-hmm.
and like thrusting their hips and everything. And then when Danny sees that and then goes and is like crying in grief, all the women around her are also like mimicking her crying in grief
Yeah.
and screaming and turn it into like a performance.
I
So like, it's just like it's very good. It's one of those things where like I saw that just as simply as like, wow, that's like weird, creepy cult behavior. And then I saw somebody on YouTube comments say that it was like, oh yeah, that's like love bombing is the term. So like
mhm.
you're just like, yeah, or empathy bombing or whatever. Where you're just like, so many people are getting around somebody and like filling them with like validation and whatever, and like trying to feel their emotions in order to like get them to connect deeply in like a
Mhm.
short amount of time with them. So I was like, oh yeah, that's very clever.
I could be wrong about this, so don't correct me if I'm wrong, comments, but I'm pretty sure
Mm,
like the Moonies cult does like a lot of stuff like that. Like they have
mm,
giant, like 1,000 person like wedding and birthday ceremonies and shit like that.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, so let's see, so there's the cliff jump. Another kind of fun connection. There's so many movies that do this. Is there's like a Wizard of Oz element to this movie a little bit.
yeah,
Uh, Danny obviously being Dorothy. Um,
mm-hmm,
you can kind of assign every other character to the roles of
yeah,
Dorothy's traveling party. I can't remember who said it, but I remember somebody mentioning that Pele would be the tornado, which
mm-hmm,
which
mm-hmm.
makes perfect sense.
That's a good comparison. Yeah, and then what was that other guy, Mark,
Yeah,
who was like just a like his
he's so
actor.
good. He's so good in this.
He's a guy that I have seen a million fucking times. Just like baked out of his mind. Just the stupid dude. Like just like not a mean spirited guy, just like a dumb guy that's just swept up in inertia.
Mhm.
Of like the situation around him. It's like you feel like both like Danny and Christian are sort of aware of how weird the situation that they're in is, and
Yes.
they just are stuck because trying to disengage from it would mean like confronting a deeper sadness within themselves and like the reality that they don't want to be together.
Yeah.
And then Josh, who is William Jackson Harper, like
Uh,
he is invested purely on like an academic level, so he's sort of like compartmentalizing all the fucked up stuff that's
mhm.
happening in order to be like, well,
No,
this is part of my thesis, so
yeah.
I'm doing this. And then Mark is just like just kind of there for the ride.
Yeah, he
so
wants to
so
bang
he's
Swedish chicks.
yeah, so he's like completely missing all of this stuff. Like he misses the suicide ceremony,
Mhm.
and then like these other things happen. He like pisses on like this sacred tree where they deposit the ashes of the dead. And it's just like he's just like, yeah, man, I don't know, I didn't know it was like a big
I
deal.
was about to piss.
uh
He's always
yeah.
he's it's so funny just the image. This is my favorite like joke with Mark. It's just like everything around them
Hmm.
is so naturalistic and beautiful and like Mother Earth and flowers. And then there's just one guy
Hmm.
with a big ass modern vape that he keeps hitting.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Let's
Again,
see.
he's like I know this guy, like I know
Hmm.
exactly this guy, and it's just like it's such a funny, well observed character. uh
Um, Thankfully his death is off screen because
mhm.
I don't know, but the reveal that he is dead is really because that happens during oh my gosh.
When Josh
Yeah,
is getting
when Josh is
killed.
getting killed, yeah, there's another member. I'm assuming it's the guy that was yelling at him when he pissed in the tree, but he was
Hmm.
wearing his skin. And I do
Hmm.
remember, like, somebody had like not noticed it, and I can't remember who said it, but someone was like, "What was wrong with his face in that shot? Why was he just standing there?" And they couldn't tell that it was somebody wearing a face.
Yeah, yeah,
If you hear,
yeah, and that's like very
well, no,
fucked
it's my
up.
roommates.
Yes, I do hear them in the background, but that's okay. It's fine.
Let's see.
We'll deal with that. You know, we're used to animal interference. It's okay.
Yeah, so this movie does have a lot of like subtle comedic moments. Like there's a part like right when they first get there, before you realize how fucked up everything is. Like one of the women
Mm-hmm.
comes in and just is like, "The children are watching Austin Powers. If you'd like to join them." So they at least have like a
Yeah.
television. Uh,
Yeah.
the logistics, because like I don't think they live at this place year round. Like I don't think they
Yeah.
do. And they also say that so it's a they're there for like it's a 9 day feast is the title, and they say that they
Mm-hmm.
only do this every 90 years. But there's also like a May Queen that has been found every year.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think it is they only do the nine human sacrifices every 90 years, maybe.
Yeah.
It's how the exactly how the cult works out is never like fully explained.
Which is
They're
fine. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's scarier. I do love how uh, their oracles like are portrayed. I just think it's really fascinating. Like just their holy text that's like an ever evolving volume of just like finger paints.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, and that immediately introduces like this is like an incest, like there's incest in this cult because like earlier Josh is asking like, well, how do you guys like, is there any inbreeding because of it being like so closed off or whatever, and then they mention like no, but there's sometimes cousins are permitted, and then eventually it's revealed like, oh yeah, our oracles are actually like created through inbreeding, like
mhm.
directly through inbreeding, so that gives it like this weird like, there's almost like a eugenics kind of
Yeah.
vibe to it, which is present in like all cults to an extent.
Mhm.
The idea of like, we're the true believers and you're the outsiders and you're impure
Yeah.
and everything. So like basically the entire time, like, I mean, I know it's a horror movie, so that gives away that it's going to go south, but like it's just very unnerving the moment that you get in there with like these like modern dudes going in
Mhm.
and just being like, you just always expect something wrong is going to happen like right around the corner. And I remember feeling very uncomfortable with like the two British
Oh,
people who were there, and
Connie and Simon.
yeah, and like the guy like flipping the fuck out when like the suicides
Mhm.
happened,
Yeah.
and then
So
being mm-hmm.
so, I'm sorry to keep cutting you off.
Oh,
Uh,
go ahead.
so that scene you're talking about how like uh, that made you like be like, oh shit, something bad's gonna happen when they were freaking out, right? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell this story. When I was watching this with Heather and Broden, I remember Heather being like, "Man, it's really fucked up that they're interrupting this right now." Like in in
That's
terms
what
of
I'm saying, is that it's like it sort of puts you into this trance state of like, even though what's happening is fucked up, you're like, I don't know, that is kind of disrespectful to
yeah,
the
exactly,
it's
exactly.
a
And
tradition.
they try and leave, and I think her name is Siv, like the cult leader,
Mm,
the older woman. She
mm,
explains to them like their worldview of like death and life being a cycle, and that like the baby that's going to be born is going to inherit the name. Like in the moment when
mm.
when she's explaining it, you're like, okay, I can kind of see it, but like it's like just another way to brainwash you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's interesting because like I've always felt that in general, and here we are, we're getting into a big topic right now, but just bear with me here, everybody. That like the Western world has a really hard time with processing death, and that's why other cultures that have like less of a problem with death, or more, it's more like present in their life, and will do things like human sacrifice or like big rituals to honor their dead or things like that that seem like morbid or morose.
Mhm.
Um, like those are considered like barbaric or primitive, when it's just like, in my head it's always been like, maybe that's like a slightly more healthy overall way of living, is to like just understand that death is a constant part of living and it can happen. What's not good is the eugenics, we put you down when you're 72 years old exactly, and then you return to the soil, like that is weird and fucked up,
Hmm.
but like, you know, stuff like the like rituals honoring the dead, or like people like dying in these big ceremonies or whatever, or and even like consuming the flesh of the dead, things
Hmm.
like that that seem like primitive or ghoulish to us, might just be a consequence of us living in this sort of like
Yeah.
sheltered Western view of the world, and us being so disturbed by death, and so obsessed with like clinging onto life as much as possible, that all of that stuff just like unnerves us on like a deep
Yeah.
level, because we're just like our brains are fucked up and like
Hmm.
programmed to,
Yeah.
to like want to reject it as much as possible. So when we see other people that don't care as much, it's like disturbing to us. So
Hmm. Well, I mean,
yeah, that's mm-hmm.
that's an aspect of like a bit of a tangent. Like Phantasm is
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
besides the the tall man and the silver spheres, he is like a an undertaker, and like so much of that the horror in that series is just like the specifically American way that we handle death, not just how we grieve, but like
Mm-hmm.
like the coffins. We put all the dead in this big mausoleum. We put them in the earth. Like there's we do our own kind of rituals, and they're also frightening. I,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is like it's okay, but yeah, it's just like that. Thinking about it from that perspective, I was trying to be like, okay, maybe there is some, you know, like this. I don't think that this is necessarily trying to portray Harga as like an evil cult, like, because I think that they are kind of aware. I don't know. I don't think that they're 100% aware of like malicious intent or whatever. There's some things that sort of feel like they're being manipulative or malicious,
well,
but overall it does feel like they have this like genuine on, like they think that what they're doing is like good.
mm-hmm.
uh you know that, but that's the thing, is that people can be, that's cognitive dissonance. You know, you can be so brainwashed that you are doing these terrible things, but you're like, well, it's fine because it's,
Yeah,
you know, it's for this reason or whatever. I just
and
don't even think about it as like a malicious act. It's just what I need to do.
yeah, and it's not a cult of like I mean a regular traditional cult. Most of them are. Well, I
It's
could
like
be
a
wrong.
cult of personality.
No, I could be wrong about that. Yeah, cult of personality, but it's like people that are not related that are brought together,
Mm-hmm.
recruitment wise. But this is like a group of like family that this is all they've ever known, raised in essentially.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it's
Um,
like they, of course they like it just would never even cross their mind that what they're doing is wrong. It is. Well,
yeah.
I feel like some members of the hierarchy maybe are a bit more malicious. Uh, than
Mm-hmm.
than like the average like just person eating bread. Like I mean, they are killing them and torturing them and putting them
Yeah,
in blood
exactly. That's
eagles.
what I'm saying, is that like they're doing these like gruesome acts and they're hiding it. Whereas, like, if they were doing these gruesome acts, like, oh yes, we killed your friend, and now he's supplying, you know, fertilizer for this, that would mean that they like 100% think that what they're doing is like purely good. But there's some part of their brain that still understands that the outside world considers this fucked up.
Hmm.
So, like, even if they're fine with killing people and burying them, and you know, like the one guy that got his backs flayed open
The
and
blood
like,
eagle.
you know, yeah,
Hmm.
dear God, you know, um, like that.
Hmm.
What was I saying? That they think that that is, you know, totally fine despite the brutality
Yeah.
of it, and it just like leads you to believe that, like you said, maybe there's some people that are like, I feel like the people that are like sent out to recruit people and bring them back to be sacrifices, like they're kind of aware of how fucked up things are.
Hmm.
So like Pele, for example,
Yeah.
is like
Or
the,
what's Ingmar? I think is his
yeah.
friend, the one who brings
Mm-hmm.
Sami and Akani.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they
Uh,
establish like the cycles. Like 1 to 17 is spring. Uh,
mm-hmm.
18 to 36 is summer. When you're 18 to
Mm-hmm.
36, you can leave the group. I believe they come back
Yeah.
to
The
6.
gotta say, the idea of like, oh, you leave and you go on a pilgrimage to recruit more people, that sounds a lot like Mormonism to me. you
Uh,
know?
we just talked about Five Nights at Freddy's. Can we go one
Yeah.
episode without mentioning Mormonism?
Just saying, it's
Yeah.
like it's the biggest cult in America, so
I swear to
or the
God,
world probably.
earlier when we started recording and you were about when you talked about Marshall the shell with shoes on when I asked about if you had seen an A24 movie. I don't know why, but I thought you were going to ask if Five Nights at Freddy's was A24.
That would be really funny.
I would love to see A24's Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah. I mean, that movie had, I guess it had a style to it, but it definitely wasn't like as stylish as like
God no.
this.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can say that like Ari Aster is just a very like a very stylish filmmaker in general. There's so many like breathtaking shots in the movie, and so many like unnerving or creepy moments that are just like accentuated through the camera work or through the set design, and like just anything that you could possibly want from like a good director, especially one that's trying to put you into this like vulnerable emotional state like this movie is.
So he accomplishes all that while the movie is also set like 98% in broad daylight.
Yeah,
And
that's another like
that's one of my
huge.
favorite parts of this movie, is just that it's all daylight. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, because it's like far north enough that it has that like midnight sun effect. Um, and that's like, dear God, that must suck. Like that's maddening, honestly. The idea, like I think that's kind of the point, is that like it was just day all the time. It's like I know that night all the time seems like more depressing and more suffocating, but like constantly daylight while you have like two people in like a terrible relationship trying like guy dragging his girlfriend across the fucking world just because he's too afraid to break it off with her. He would literally rather bring her to a cult than go to therapy. And like all this stuff.
I'm sure they're both college students. I'm sure there is probably a free therapist on whatever campus they go to.
Yeah. And like, man, another thing about Christian, that scene where he goes to Josh and it's like, I think I'm going to do my thesis about this. And then
He's
like
so
it pisses
slimy.
off Josh. It's so fucking, I was laughing honestly because I was like, that is such a this guy would do this kind of thing. Like that's such a perfect writing choice that this like non-committal loser would be like, yeah, I'm just gonna like do what you're doing but worse. And then the friend is like, well, I've been like studying like this my whole my entire college time. Yeah. So like it's and like you're just kind of coming in because you just want to play like a tourist essentially in this, and then like you want to like feel like you're in control of something but you can't be. It's just like it's just like so indicative of him as a person and his relationship and everything, to the point where like I've seen some people describe the scene where he has sex with that girl as cheating, but like I think maybe at some point
he's
he
so
thought
drugged up though.
well, that's what I'm saying. Like I think at some point maybe he like convinces himself that it's like this is a power move. I'm gonna cheat on her because my girlfriend is emotionally distant, et cetera, et cetera. But like it's literally like he talks to a lady in a room that gives him the permission, and then gets drugged up, and then is like put into this like ceremony room surrounded by naked women, and it's just like forced to have sex with this girl. It's like I wouldn't say it's definitely not consensual on his part.
No,
I would say
no,
like maybe at first like the seed of the idea was like a power play thing, but when it got down to brass tacks, it definitely wasn't. Two, I would have a hard time getting it up in that scenario inside of a wooden building surrounded by like weird naked women that are like
on the ground on flowers. There's thorns digging into your legs.
It's just like
kind of see like the exact moment where like the downward spiral starts to happen for Christian. It's
Mm.
and we'll just touch on this whole scene, I guess. The May Queen dance scene is
Ooh,
probably my
yeah.
favorite scene in the movie.
Mm.
Well,
Mm.
there's so many scenes that I would say that about,
Because
but
that's another one of those where you're like so hypnotized that you're like, yeah, this is awesome.
it looks,
This rules.
and I guess kind of a little side asterisk score on the scene. As somebody who's tried mushrooms and psychedelics, I'll say in terms of just matching the visuals, this is like one of the best portrayals on film I've ever
Mm.
seen of like how psychedelics work.
Yeah.
Like there's like this weird warbly effect on trees constantly, like in
Mm.
so many
Mm.
shots. Uh,
And when when Danny wins and gets the Mayflower or May whatever May Queen flower hat thing, uh, and you can see the like the flowers like waving back and forth and like holes opening up in them and everything. It's yeah, and like Christian is losing his fucking mind,
yeah,
like
so
sitting at the table.
no, so yeah, so back to Christian. So the moment happens, he's sitting there watching her do the dance, and then I think
Mm-hmm.
her name is Uma. She's the blonde who she's the one at the very end who's like, you can't speak, you can't move. All right. So she comes up and
Mm-hmm.
gives him
Mm-hmm.
tea and says like it opens you up to the influences, and he tries to turn it down. He says he's worried he's gonna have a bad trip. And this is right after the cult leader had said that Maya wanted to have sex with him. So we see him think it over, and then he drinks the tea and like kind of puts his face in his hands, like, "Oh fuck, what's gonna happen?"
Yeah.
I think that I think the next time he gets drugged, it's for they uh they like blow like shit in his face right before he goes
Mm-hmm.
into the sex room for his vitality.
Yeah. They like have this like little essence like
Yeah,
thing that they take the lid off of.
whatever that is, that drug really messes him up, and from then on, it's like he's completely not in control.
Yeah. Yeah. So that yeah, I mean, to go back to the dance scene, it
Mhm.
was like, man, she is locked the fuck in. But also like I've seen some people suggest that maybe from the beginning they had selected her like to be the May Queen and then set everything up so that she would win. Like it was like they manipulated all of the events in such a way that
No, hang on.
she would be
Um,
she would be the
mhm.
one to win, which I think is like totally possible because a lot of this whole situation is like kind of
I
controlled and they have like no
mhm.
agency in what's going on.
My response to that is the same response I have when people say that seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race are rigged.
Mm-hmm.
In
Yeah.
that in that the producers may have set up the circumstances for their favorite to win, but that favorite also had to deliver. If they flopped, they wouldn't have won the
Mm-hmm.
crown. But Danny,
Yeah.
I don't think they could have rigged the May Queen dance.
Yeah. That's
She
what
was
I'm
thrown in
thinking. I
without
think
that.
it's like a narrative contrivance, but it's yeah, it wasn't like actually created or forced into existence by that, which is fine. It's like the movie has to fucking happen. It's way more interesting if she did win and she was put into this position. And like that final moment when they're talking about the sacrifices and how they need one more, uh, the entire time that she's going to pick Christian.
Uh,
It's like there's no way this isn't going to be how it goes down. Not even because I was necessarily like he deserves it, kill that motherfucker, but just because it's like fuck. Like there's no way that this like
she's gonna pick a
manipulated,
stranger
emotionally
that
vulnerable
she's never met.
yeah, she's gonna pick the person that she considers like it's your fault I'm here, and you're the source of like all of my current issues. If you just went away, I could like live my new life. And in a way, she mimics her sister at the beginning of the movie, in that through her actions, she kills people that are unwillingly that don't want to die,
Yeah,
purely out of a selfish desire to leave her life. But in this case, she is reborn as a member of this cult. So,
I've never made that connection before. That's so brilliant. I don't know how I didn't
yeah.
because her sister like haunts this entire movie. Like
Mm,
Not only do we see like just like when Danny's having nightmares, images of her. Did you notice
mm.
that like when she's crowned May Queen and they put her up on the Don Momotaro palanquin and they're carrying her
Yeah.
away, that the image of her sister with the hose coming out of her mouth is like in the trees.
Mm.
Did you notice it?
I did not notice that actually,
I'll
but
see
that's
if
a cool,
I'll see
really
if I
cool
can find
detail.
it.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of good, like, really good details in it. I wonder if this would probably be an extremely bad movie to watch on psychedelics, just because it's so like
Mm,
fucking with your mind and your reality and everything. Like,
I
because the
don't think I
characters are
have.
constantly tripping.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
think I've watched this on psychedelics. I'll tell you what movie was great
Yeah.
on psychedelics is Mandy. That movie was
Ooh.
fucking awesome.
That's like the Nicolas Cage killing a bunch of people movie.
Yeah,
Is that
Nicolas
the?
Cage, LSD fueled revenge movie.
Oh, cool.
I think I found it. Oh God, I had to find one that doesn't have the awful like YouTube thumbnail circle with the arrow pointing at it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw a lot of videos like explaining the ending of Midsummer. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it was pretty easy for me to sort of like understand what was going on. Here, okay, let me look at the. Oh yeah, okay, yep,
You
I can
see
see
it?
it.
Hmm. It's
Yep.
so great. It's so creepy.
Yeah. Yep. That is very creepy.
Mhm.
But yeah, the I feel like that whole, that's just like a great way to end the movie. It like to wrap everything up is that, you know, she feels so much like conflict and sort of hatred towards her sister for, putting her into this position, and then she ends up being the person who like inflicts that same pain onto, like does the
Christian.
same thing that sister does like onto Christian and
And I mean, like,
everything. So
we don't know anything about the situation of their families. We don't know if Christian has a family. Presumably he does.
mm-hmm,
Presumably Mark and Josh and everybody there had families. Uh,
mm-hmm.
and yeah, speaking of family, that's also like I love this little moment from Danny when they're I think it's the first time they're taking the mushrooms when they're all just kind of sitting on a hill, and it's going fine for her right until Mark's ass says, "You guys are like my family," and that one word like snaps her into it, and she starts to have a bad trip. And it's
Yeah.
I will say that also was very accurately portrayed.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, as is the moment of like when they're tripping and Mark is like, "What time is it?" And they're like, "Oh, it's 9 p.m."
Hmm.
And he's freaking out because the sun is still up,
Everybody lay down.
or
I
the
need you to
sky
lay
is
down
still
with me.
blue.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's just such a like stoned guy thing to get worried about. It's like, dude, this is the whole special thing about this area is that this happens.
Hmm.
So, but I've also had like I've had those weird dreams where I like wake up and it's like, why is it 2 a.m. but the sun is out? What's going on? And I'm freaking out for some reason
Hmm.
in my head. I don't know. So I totally get that like that weird fear. I'll say this. Speaking of sleeping, the fact that they sleep in that big communal lodge, that's like that must really fucking suck.
Hmm.
I need to have some privacy when I'm sleeping. Can you set up curtains or something?
There's
You
no
know?
there's no outlets to plug in your tablet.
Yeah. There's no TV that I can watch YouTube on.
No,
So
I've got to watch Mr.
we're going to
Beast.
bed. But like, yeah, and the baby crying in the background and like all this shit
There's
happening where
a
I'm just like,
very
I agree with Danny being like every night being like, hey, can you give me some sleeping pills? So,
very randomly. I don't think this is ever like called back on, but when one of the scenes when they're in that little dorm, they're
mm,
picking up a crying baby from like a crib. This lady just comes and puts a pair of scissors under the pillow and then just leaves, and that's
yeah.
never ever touched on.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of I like there's a lot of little things with the cult that are like it is creepy, but in the same way it is like in the movie it's charming.
mm,
Like they always have like it looks like little Lord Fauntleroy, like a little blonde child, come up to like tell him dinner's ready, and then he just runs away.
yeah. Mm,
Just their outfits, they're like the flowy white outfits.
mm, mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It does have that like uh that pastoral quality that I think this is why I'm weirded out by the people that are really into like homesteading and like those kind of like cottage core people and things like that want to be like isolated from society and live in the forest or whatever with like a small commune of people, because it's like I just all see them. I don't think necessarily every white woman that wants to live in a cottage is like an isolationist like cult member or a white supremacist or something. But just seeing like, oh, all of these like Swedish blonde people, all white, and
There's
like,
definitely that aspect to
yeah.
the cult for sure.
And then just in general, like just seeing people like latch onto that and then be like really into, like really connect with it. I feel like that is like not 100% a good thing,
Oh,
and
yeah,
yeah,
I
like not just
agree.
in this movie, but in like any, just in general, when people see like the traditional communities, because this is a very like, I mean, obviously they're like Amish or whatever. I mean, they're a pagan cult, but
They have a
like it's that
TV to
type
watch
of thing
Austin
where they have,
Powers.
yeah, sure, but it's like mostly a like a farmstead kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so they have very traditional gender roles too, like the women are all like cooking and cleaning and taking care of the kids, and the men are out there farming and taking care of the animals and doing
Hmm.
whatever and like going out and recruiting more people. Uh, so it does have that. It has like these. It's a commune, but it's like the very gender essentialist commune,
Yeah.
and I feel like I just see a lot of that online. And you see it in like Instagram and things like that. People,
Restocking my mason jars, like that kind of shit.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, that kind of thing. Where it's like I'm taking my bucket to the well to like get it. I'm like, you're gonna get diphtheria, bitch. Just use the
Yeah.
sink. Just
There's
yeah.
there's only one homesteader that I approve of, and it's just because
Mm-hmm.
his channel is centered around his dog, and the dog is very
Mm-hmm.
cute. So
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't really have a problem with homesteading in general. It's just there's like a part of my brain that's like always on guard because of it, and I think that part of my brain like activated really hard watching this. So I was immediately like, something's up. There's something wrong with these guys.
hmm.
You know, I don't know what it is, but there's something's gonna be weird about them. Um, but
Well,
yeah,
I
I
think that
think
about
that
wraps it
we're
up.
yeah.
Um,
I think there's not really much more to go on about. Uh, I guess we could just spare some attention towards Florence Pugh for being
yeah,
like an excellent
hmm,
like lead actress.
that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
uh,
And that and as well as like the final scene is just like breathtaking. Like the final 10 minutes of the movie is just like heart stuck in your throat kind of
mhm.
beautiful and terrible all at once. And
Yeah,
like that smile right at the end is just like what a perfect cherry on top of this movie.
hmm, yeah, she's completely outstanding. Again, history repeated itself, much like with I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. The lead
Mm,
actress of Hereditary.
sure.
She also is like equally as amazing a performance, and again, both did not get the award nomination.
Oh, okay, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck this. I can't believe this movie was 2019. Jeez, just like looking at like how long ago
Hmm.
that was.
Toni Collette, that was her name.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and we'll probably get to Hereditary eventually, but for now, I'll have to throw it to you. What? Okay, Cody, what's the next movie that we're going to be talking about?
well, I'll tell you what. First, I'll tell you what movie we're not going to be talking about because I had it narrowed down to
Mm-hmm.
two. It was between The
Okay.
Toxic Avenger, which we're not going to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll
Okay.
maybe cover it later.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we're going to be watching 28 Days Later.
Ooh. Okay.
Because there's a sequel coming out this year, a long-awaited sequel. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think now is the perfect time to cover at least days. I don't know if we'll get to weeks back to back, but I do want to talk about that too. But
Sure.
yeah, hmm,
Yeah. That's one of those movies that I remember like just because it was in that time period where I was actively paying attention to pop culture and it was all new and all that stuff. So, like, yeah, very similar to like Ring and everything, like that time period of like the 2000s. So
we'll touch on that heavily because I already have something to talk about in regards to that.
But okay,
well,
Cody,
Wyatt,
where can they find you? Yeah,
assuming we're watching this on my channel, find me here. You can find me on Twitter. My name on there is Gay Boomhauer. And you can find me on IMDb. It's just my name, Cody J. Briscoe, and from there you can see all my acting projects. And some of them are on streaming. Some of them should be coming out on sale on DVD and Blu-ray. As soon as I know more about that, I can let you guys know. And where can you find you, Wyatt?
First of all, I want to say I completely forgot that Oscars were tonight.
Yes.
Oscar night, yeah. The only Oscar I care about is a little green man from Sesame Street. That's right, it's Oscar the Grouch. That's the
Awesome.
He's the only one for me. But anyway, I'm on Twitter at Wasp Ranger, WAZP Ranger. Also Blue Sky. We're mostly posting there at this point on Blue Sky. Also WAZP Ranger. I have my podcast, Cartoon Buffoons, that I do with our friend Morgan. That's on the YouTube channel. YouTube channel is It's Only Magic. If you want to support that on Patreon and get the episodes a week early, go on there, $3. Bam, you get that. You also get all of the Doctor Who show that we did, all the Stephen King show that we did. And for just $1, if you only got $1, you can still get some stuff. You get the Wow Cool Robot, which is me and my friend Dwayne going through every single robot in existence and reviewing them. That's 5 to 10 minute episodes. So that'll have to do it for this episode on Midsommar. Join us next time. We talk about 28 Days Later. See you there.
Peace out.